So I'm going to have you ready for parasites in less than an hour. And there's a couple of givens in this discussion, and one of them is that to benefit from this discussion, you are a CAC, aquascape, or ecosystem pond installer. That's what you do. You don't put in koi museums. You don't do dragster filtration systems. It is basic ecosystem, gravel on the bottom, skimmer, waterfall filter type of environment. And there's a couple of things about that. Some of these it's kind of hard to catch the fish. Two, it's kind of a high degree of mastery to figure out all 7 parasites and do the biopsies to figure out what they are, and then apply a specific treatment for each one. So I think probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you about the parasites in general terms, and then I'm going to talk to you about the shotgun treatments. And shotgun treatments in your pond that you're treating to get rid of parasites, assuming that that's what's going on. Shotgun treatments can be very effective, and they can be pretty darn easy in aquascape or ecosystem pond installations. And there's a pretty good reason for that, and it has a lot to do with the organics in the system. But let's go through the classes of parasites first, in as much as it matters. First, there are the ciliated protozoan parasites. That includes ick and costia and kilodinella and trichodina, trichophria, epistylus, glossatella. And you don't have to remember that, because there's like 3 or 4 things that kill those parasites all the same. You would think that I would say salt, but that's not actually it. Salt is very good. It kills most of the ciliated protozoan parasites, including ick. And under certain instances, salt for ick is one of my favorites, because salt stays in the system. And you got to admit that putting salt in the water and leaving it there until you change it out is easy. Okay, but it's not fab for plants. As such, especially with ecosystem installations like you guys do, salt might not be the best choice. But man, is it easy. The problem with salt, if there is one, is that it doesn't clear flukes, trematode parasites. And then even among the ciliates, sometimes salt does not control costia. And there are occasions where you have to double dose the salt to get rid of trichodina. So my point being is that the ciliates, as one category of parasite, is a wide category with a lot of players in it, with some of the most significant being ick and costia, and not entirely sensitive to salt. So it kind of leaves you looking at other medicines, and there's 2 that are really good against the ciliates, including ick. One of those is formalin malachite, and then the other medication would be Mardell's Clout. It's a blue tablet that turns into a couple of compounds in a dye, and it stains the water for a minute and kills the parasites. And it's used the same as formalin in an aquascape installation, and I'll tell you about that a little later. So the next category of parasites, we just covered the ciliates, and the second category of parasites are the flukes. And the flukes are different. They're much larger than the ciliated protozoan parasites. They do not have cilia. They actually have hooks, and they're easy to see under the microscope. You can even sometimes, I've never really tried it, but they say if you use a magnifying glass or hand lens, as they sometimes say, you can actually see the flukes with just a magnifying glass on the surface of the fish. And I believe that, and that's fine. But flukes are treated with 3 potential compounds. Well, actually, they can be treated with 5 potential compounds, but there's an interesting overlap that you'll hear. Flukes can be treated with a compound called praziquantel. It's a cat dewormer, actually, and then it fell into widespread use as a cat and dog dewormer for cestodes, tapeworms. And in fish, it's used very effectively and very safely for flukes or trematodes. So, and that's great, and it works every time. From a cost standpoint, not sure whether it's really prohibitively expensive in 1,000 gallons or 2,000 or 3,000 gallons, but there's one called CyraPro and another, I think it's called Protzy. When this video gets edited, I'll put the names and the links to those products under the video or in the video. Either way, so flukes are easy to treat with the Protzy, but here's the interesting overlap, and that is flukes are easily treated with formalin malachite or clout. So ciliated protozoan parasites have the specific ability in many instances to be treated by salt or formalin malachite clout. Or you go to the next category of parasite, and that would be flukes, which can be treated with praziquantel or formalin malachite and clout. So it crosses my mind to tell you guys that even if you knew the difference between those two categories of parasites, you're going to do fine treating them with clout or formalin malachite. Okay? So that shotgun, either one, you can do the clout shotgun or you can do the formalin malachite shotgun. Either of those shotguns are going to get all the ciliates and all the trematodes. So, I mean, that's a good thing. There's a third category of parasite, though, and this one's pretty easy to diagnose because this particular category of parasite you can see with the naked eye, and that category is anchorworm and fish lice. There's actually a third one. It's called gill maggots, also known as ergasilis, but I knew you knew that. I just thought I'd throw it in there because I actually saw a case of it in 20 years. It's not common. More common in catfish farms, actually. Commercial fisheries and stuff, they see that a pretty good bit. In the fish hobby, interestingly enough, a lot of the really cool parasites, they're found at the wholesale or the breeder level. So a lot of what is out there you don't see because the breeders catch it first and they take care of it at the farm, or the importer sees it, takes care of it there, or the wholesaler sees it, takes care of it there. The retailer finally gets it, and sometimes there's still parasites on those fish. In fact, it should be assumed that there always are. But the really easy parasites don't usually end up something that you see a lot, especially anchorworm and fish lice, usually kept out of my purview anyway by being controlled at a much higher level than the hobbyist level. But in any event, these parasites, ergasilis, argulis, and lernia, are treatable with one medication, and that is an insect growth regulator, an IGR. It prevents those parasites from forming a shell. The parasite, for example, like fish lice, is a crustacean or branchiurian parasite. It actually has a chitin shell, very much like lobster, crayfish, that sort of thing. And an insect growth regulator like dimolin or lufenuron or larvadex or neguvon. Well, anyway, those insect growth regulators, they inhibit the ability to produce a shell, which thereby kills those parasites. So fish lice, anchorworm, and gill maggots all respond to an insect growth regulator, and there's a lot of them out there. And if you go to koivet.com/resources, you'll find an insect growth regulator or 3 listed and where to buy them. Some of them are on Amazon.com. Some of them are from individual retailers and purveyors of fine fish medications, globally, maybe. In any event, the nice thing about fish lice, anchorworm, and gill maggots is you can see those with the unaided eye. All you have to do is pick up a sick fish, flip it over, look at its belly and at its gills, and if the fish has those parasites, you'll actually see them sticking to the fish or the gills. Fish lice looks like little moles, dark green moles stuck to the fish. Hopefully I'm flashing pictures of these up on the screen for you to look at as you watch this video. So now the thing is that formalin malachite does not control fish lice and anchorworm and gill maggots. So unfortunately, it is not your blanket treatment. Believe me, I've tried. You will kill your fish with formalin malachite before you take care of fish lice. So you kind of get backed into using an insect growth regulator. But something to consider is if you look at the panel of parasites that we're talking about treating, and you realize that if the large parasites you can see with the naked eye are treated with an insect growth regulator and everything else is treated with formalin malachite, or clout, you really only need technically 2 medications for a perfect shotgun. That would be an insect growth regulator applied alongside formalin malachite or clout. How cool is that? Now, the nice thing about the insect growth regulators is if you apply those, they stay in the system for more than a week, which is all you need to control those macro parasites. So then the microparasite remedy or shotgun, formalin malachite or clout, those are applied every day for 3 days. Skip a day and dose a 4th time, then skip a day and dose a 5th time. And in any water in the high 60s to 70s, very, very low 80s, that 5 treatment method works great against everything from ick to costia to flukes. But let me toss out there just a few caveats regarding these parasites. First, using formalin in warm water is like a big deal. It's not a good idea. In fact, if the tank or pond or facility was over 78 degrees, I would start thinking more about clout and less about formalin malachite. And if the water temperature was 80 degrees or higher, I would not even use formalin malachite. Or if I had to use formalin malachite, say because the pond was 12,000 gallons and it was the only economical choice, I would do a massive water change to cool the water down a little bit, and then I would use the formalin malachite. But the problem is 5 days out, when you're using formalin malachite, the water temperatures come back up again into an area which is a little bit dangerous, so you might end up having to do another water change. What a pain. But, you know, it's okay. Now, the Mardel clout is nice because you can use that in any water temperature that you want, and everything goes fine. It doesn't hurt your plants, and it doesn't hurt the fish, and it has a tendency not to push sick fish over the edge. It doesn't consume dissolved oxygen. It's just a really good remedy. But it's 100 tablets for about $15, and 100 tablets will treat 1,000 gallons one time. And if you're treating 3,000 gallons, you're talking about $45, and then you're talking treating 5 times. So then it starts to get into some bucks because you have to treat 3 days in a row, skip a day, treat, skip a day, treat. 5 treatments. So then you start leaning back towards the formalin malachite when you're talking about large amounts of water. So you see that they dovetail together very well, with temperature being the thing that pushes you back towards Mardel clout, and size of the facility that pushes you back towards formalin malachite. So it really kind of doesn't matter about the parasites, unless you want to know what they are and how they kill stuff, in which case I did a video on the parasites under the microscope so you can see what they look like. And it has highlights of how those parasites behave and whether they prefer cold water or whether they work better in the summer or things like that. And then there's another video called The Control of Parasites, and it takes into consideration a lot more aquatic environments than just an aquascape installation. It just so happens, though, in aquascape or ecosystem pond installations, you have a lot more leeway about the way you can use formalin malachite because oxygenation is so good in those ponds and water turnover on the waterfall is so good that degassing the formalin works very well, and staining is minimal, and the organics in the system binds the formalin out before any real damage can be done at the 2-hour mark. So that, in far less than an hour, apparently, is my kind of overview survey primer on the parasites that I wanted to give you. So this would be the second pre-seminar video leading up to Tom Smith's place. And in the second half of the afternoon, it talks a little bit about parasites and other resources and things that to where you won't feel like you've been ripped off as far as a discussion of parasites if we don't go into too much detail. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Check out koivet.com/resources and stay in touch. And I appreciate you guys.